You should always avoid text in Photoshop. Avoid it. Photoshop is for designing the background of things. It's for uh, basically the web. But when it comes to print, I would say avoid it like the plague, because these are actually pixels. Okay, and pixels are at the mercy of having many of them equals good. Too few, and they become pixelated, and then later on it's junk. Now, as long as you follow the design principles that I laid down in the first video, draw big, shrink small, you should have it too much problem with that at all. Just think of your product, how big is it, times it by a different number, and make it bigger than that, and then you should have no problem taking this and printing it as big as you want. Okay, that being said, I would avoid Photoshop's text, and the only reason I wouldn't avoid it is because you can do crazy things in Photoshop that you can't do in InDesign or Illustrator. Take this for example. I could take text and I can bend it and warp it in different ways that I can't. Let's say I take that layer and I rasterize the type. So now I truly turned that into pixels. But what's nice about pixels is they can be transformed, skewed, rotated, distorted, and warped. If you look at distort or perspective, let's go to distort first. Distort allows me to do wacky things like this and wacky things like this. And then if I hit a move tool, I can apply that change, and there we go. And if you look at the edge, it's still crisp, somewhat. All the tools work like that. So edit, step backwards once, and if you go into the other tool, which is my other favorite, warp, you're going to find that it makes this cage, and now I can kind of take text and do a little bit more weird, baffling things to text. And these rocker arms allow you to gradually change over a large area. So I might have a point right here. See how these rocker arms are like this to a point, and what that does is sharpen it. Or I can go out here, and what that'll do is round it off. So those kind of tighten up the curve. These, along with this, allow you to soften the curve. And then you can go in the center too and choose, anything as far as the squish goes. And go like that and apply it. So you can see all kinds of benefits to Photoshop using text, but just watch out your resolution. Don't produce garbage from it, because if you're not careful, you'll get a lot of printing problems. If I print this document, you can see this is at 8.5 by 11, but it's 300 dots per inch. So I shouldn't have any problems, but if I ever wanted to go bigger, I would have problems. Another thing about rasterizing type that's nice is I can now affect it a little bit better. So if I can hold command over this area, I can change its color. I can add texture to it. Let's say I wanted to fill that with a gradient tool now. I could do that. If I wanted to take and add noise to it, I can. So that goofy stuff. But I could still do that even regardless of if it's rasterized or not. So I'm going to show you something else. If I have the text tool again, and I say focus, I'll change that color because white's just too much. Alright, so for this focus, if I wanted to change the color, I could do it without destroying it. All I do is hold Command and click over the top of it, and then make a new layer. Well, the new layer, who cares what's on that, right? So the new layer could have the gradient, it could have the filter, noise, add noise, it could have all that good stuff right over the top of it. And then I also made from that layer, I made pixels. So that's another way of doing it. So you can rasterize it, or you can do it over the top, and now you can distort it. So many different ways to do the same thing in Photoshop. You got to realize that, and it's all in how you want to do it, or what's the fastest way for you to kind of think of these things. That's what's nice about it. Alright, so that's playing around with type and how to use the warp tools to warp type and add texture to type.